The artery has a thicker wall. The vein has the tunica externa as its thickest layer. Here's the tunica media, and of course the tunica intima. These little dark things are the nuclei, and if I ask you what kind of tissue it is, you'd say it's a simple squamous epithelium. What do you find here? It's smooth muscle and or elastic fibers, but in veins you don't have much of either. And then this is the tunica externa, which ends up being a loose connective tissue. Okay, here, this is the artery. Notice how the tunica intima is scalloped. Again, sometimes you can find the nuclei pushed out in the lumen. I saw lots of people draw these kinds of figures. This is the tunica media, again, with variable amounts of smooth muscle and or elastic fibers. And here's the tunica externa. Okay, so this would be probably a medium to a, I don't know, large. This really would be a large. It's probably a medium vein, and it's probably a medium artery. But you should know artery versus vein. Now, this is clearly a muscular artery. See all these little dark things? Those are what? Smooth muscle cells. Notice here on the surface, you see all the nuclei of the simple squamous epithelium. Sometimes they break loose, you know, just because of artifactual things. See how they stick out in the lumen sometimes? Okay? And then this is the tunica externa. So if I say, what's this right here? Tunica intima. This from here to here is tunica media. This is tunica externa. And you also ought to try to know various tissue types. This is elastic fibers. This is from the aorta. The aorta is an elastic artery. Notice all the wiggly little elastic fibers. Some of you drew this. How many people drew this for their elastic connective tissue? Nobody drew this, or at least a high mag of it. But how can you not know these are elastic fibers? Look, that's classic elastic fibers, right? So this is all tunica media. Notice how thick it is. If you see this and I say, what's this a slide of? You'd say it's an elastic artery, such as the aorta. Okay? Pretty easy so far? Did you get most of these right? All right. This is an elastic artery. This is it's not really the aorta because the elastic fibers aren't quite as dense. This is a special stain for elastic fibers, but you can see the wiggly nature of the elastic fibers, right? So what would this be? This is your internal elastic lamina, right? The innermost one that's really dense would be your internal elastic lamina, and you don't really have the external elastic lamina. It would be over here somewhere. But if I said what kind of tissue is this, you'd say it's elastic connective tissue, which is one of the 6 types of what?
CT proper.
Connective tissue propers, right? Okay, these are capillaries. These are capillaries because you can see the individual red blood cells lined up, single file. This one's not, that's probably an arteriole. It's a little thicker than a capillary. But if you see a blood vessel where the cells are lined up in single file, that would be a capillary. This is a slide that is actually of a thin spread of tissue, probably like the mesothelium or something like that, or the mesentery proper, where you can actually see the blood vessels coursing through it. So it's not a cut slide. This is actually a spread slide. So that's why you see it this way. I don't think you've seen this one. I don't know if I have that one up there. You can also see, here's a fibroblast. See the fibroblast up there? Kind of stretched out. So remember, this is loose connective tissue. Remember, the mesentery has a loose connective tissue framework. All right, what are we looking at? Well, this is actually thick skin because you have your stratum basale right here, along this line right here. You have your stratum spinosum right here. You have your stratum granulosum right there. See the little purple dots? Those are granulosum. And then this little layer right here that's kind of stained orange, that would be the what?
Stratum lucidum.
Stratum lucidum. Lucidum. A lot of people say lucidium or whatever, but it's lucidum. Okay? But, and then everything at the very top would be what? Stratum what? Corneum. What's this thing sticking up here? That's a dermal papilla. Okay? So you're in the papillary layer, And then what goes in between this and this? What's right in between them right here? It'll be right in between these two. In between this and this. What's right in here?
Basement membrane.
Basement membrane or basal lamina, right. Don't forget the basics, okay? Because I might ask you some basic questions. It's not really a comprehensive exam, but you should know the basic tissue types. Like I'm not going to ask you, like the zonular fibers of the eye or, ciliary body or anything like that, but you should know the basic tissue types and basic, how they correspond. What's this thing? It's called either a Pacinian corpuscle, which is capitalized, Pacinian corpuscle, or it's also called a lamellated corpuscle. Lamellated. 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 Because it has concentric layers of lamellae. Lamellae are the little rings that go around it. See, like from here to here is one lamella, here's another one, here's another one. And then this is the nerve fiber that's going down through it. Now somebody was drawing one the other day, and they had in the center the nerve fiber, and the way that would look, it was out of the book. Well, that wasn't out of the book, but it was like the one in the book. I think it's kind of like this one. Okay, see, this is another view of a lamellated corpuscle. The nerve fiber would be coming down through here somewhere. Okay, I probably wouldn't ask you nerve fiber here, but see how they kind of swirl around that point. Okay, so this would be the lamellae. Here's one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. So, but this is a lamellated corpuscle or Pacinian corpuscle. This is one of those deep pressure receptors that detects vibration. You don't have to know that for the test. You just have to know it's a lamellated corpuscle. And these are found either deep in the dermis or in the hypodermis. Okay. Now, here's a fan favorite. What's that thing? How many people drew a Meissner's corpuscle? Lots of you did, right? Did you draw a little squiggly thing in a dermal papilla, right? And this is also from pigmented skin. You see the pigmented cells right here? Okay. Pigmented cells are usually in the stratum basale and possibly in the stratum spinosum. You can see some of these cells are pigmented. Okay, this is the dermal papilla coming up like this. So this is all dermis in here. What kind of tissue is this? Dense irregular connective tissue. You can put CT, but make sure if I ask you if it's a type of connective tissue, you have to put either connective tissue or CT in quotation marks. So you don't have to spell it out every time.
And it's around a corpuscle?
It's all of this. All the dermis is dense irregular connective tissue. Yeah, the corpuscle is right up here. See this thing right there? That's the corpuscle. All right, so what's this right here, this pink area? Okay, what's the purple? Right, and you don't see a very obvious lucidum here, so you really can't say whether this is thick or thin skin. But this out here would clearly be what? Corneum. Okay. If I ask you lucidum, then I'm clearly going to show you a layer that's obviously lucidum. Okay, what are these? Well, you got goblet cells scattered amongst there, right? You got finger-like projections coming up with a simple columnar epithelium with a connective tissue core. These are villi. Okay? These are from the intestines. These are villi. So there's a mucus-secreting goblet cell. All these little clear areas, those are mucus-secreting goblet cells, okay? And then what do we call the tissue that's in here? What fills this? Lamina propria, right. Now I don't see anything in here, but what would be running down through the center here? Coming down right through the center.
Blood vessels.
Well, coming down through the center would be a central lacteal, and then the blood vessels, the arterioles and venules and capillaries would be around it. But again, I don't see those on here. But this is just an intestinal villus. I can't really tell you exactly which area from the intestines because there's not enough features to show me. I don't see Brunner's glands, I don't see Peyer's patches. So all you can say is these are intestinal villi. See this one? There's the top of it. Now the reason it's like this is because it was probably curved like this, and when they cut it, they only got part of it. They missed this part. So you can see where it's coming from down here. Again, that's what you get when you get actual tissues sectioned. All right, what would I call this slide? Who drew this slide? What is it? The enteroendocrine cell. See the big dot in the middle? See that halo around it? There's kind of like a clear area around it. This is what you typically see with enteroendocrine cells. You see a dark condensed nucleus, and you see a little halo around it, okay? And you can see these appear to be goblet cells. Now, enteroendocrine cells are not only found in the stomach, they're found throughout the entire digestive tract. So, from the stomach through the large intestine. So, this could be from the small intestines, large intestines, or stomach. It's really hard to say, but does everybody see that enteroendocrine cell? And how many of you drew an enteroendocrine cell? I think several of you did. Okay.
So it's just the dark one in the center.
What are the wheel and spoke ones?
The epithelial cells, I'm not really sure at this point. It looks like these have goblet cells, so this is probably not the stomach, this is probably part of the intestines. Because don't forget, what do you call the intestinal glands? What's another name for intestinal glands? The crypts of Lieberkühn, right? So these are probably from down in the glands. Because remember, the enteroendocrine cells are not going to be up on the villi, they're going to be down in the intestinal glands. All right, this is another one. See this one right there? There's another enteroendocrine cell. Now this one might be from the stomach. These look like they could be chief cell, and with the pink, it could be, this could be down in the gastric gland because that might be part of a parietal cell. See the eosinophilic appearance of it? So again, as you get into the different tissues, you'll see some differences. Notice you don't see goblet cells scattered up amongst here, but you do see lots of, obviously, some purple cells and then some pink cells. I wouldn't ask you this for parietal cell, though. I'll show you a really good parietal cell in a little bit. All right, what organ are we looking at? How easy is that? How come you didn't know that on the pre-test? Exactly. See, you learned a lot, didn't you? What's this whole thing here?
Alveolar sac.
Alveolar sac. What's this little thing here?
Alveolus.
Alveolus, right? Alveolus, right? And then what would that cell be right there, or that cell be right there? Probably type 1, because they're kind of making up the wall. The alveolar type 2 are like this one right here that's kind of sticking out in the lumen. See how that kind of makes a thing where it sticks out in the lumen? Alveolar type 2, notice there's one behind it. That'd be like the alveolar type 1, and then right in front of it's the type 2. And what does the type 2 secrete?
Surfactant.
Surfactant. So, does everybody feel comfortable that they know this is the lung? Okay. What organ?